I spent several weeks totally immersed in Control on my PS5, thank you PlayStation Plus, and I was hooked from the very beginning of the game. I entered the Federal Bureau of Control and found a redacted document in the lobby. Something about a shark that got inside the building and started running wild. I chuckled and kept exploring. Within moments, the humor slipped away as the curious side of my brain started lighting up like a Christmas tree. I met an older janitor named Ahti, who spoke to me in a heavy Finnish accent. Then I turned to go back the way I came. But I couldn't return. The office space behind me had changed, and there was no way back. All I could do was move forward into what seemed like an identical lobby. But it couldn't be, right? I walked through a whole office, and this lobby had an elevator. I had questions, and I expected answers. At least, it started that way. By the end, I didn't have all the answers I wanted, or rather, thought I wanted. And I am more than okay with that. The beauty of Control isn't in solving every last mystery. The beauty is in accepting that you can't. Hi, I'm Dr. Jasper Darling, son of the late, great Dr. Casper Darling. As you know, the Federal Bureau of Control operates on a need-to-know basis. Please keep that in mind as you continue your tour of this video essay. With that, I'm going to hand things back over to our narrator. Thanks, Doc. If I may piggyback on your point for a moment, that need-to-know basis is the driving force in how Control builds out its fictional world. It's a common practice in any government agency. You only know what your pay grade or clearance level permits you to know. That dynamic is present in Control.
From there I got put on a desk until an accident left the containment sector severely understaffed, at which point I got bumped up to management.
But it goes beyond any corporate ladder. From our hero Jesse Faden to the FBC staff to the Bureau building itself, every sentient person and object has information that we know, don't know, and will never know. Let's head back to the lobby and explain the differences there. Here's what I know. Jesse Faden has come to the FBC to find her missing brother Dylan. Next, I pick up a redacted document about a loose shark. It's full of information that I, the player, don't know. Neither does Jesse. But someone knows the full story here, because someone had to redact the text in this document. However, there are some things that I will never know, like Ahti, what he really is, what he's truly capable of. These are answers that no one at the Bureau has. Now, have a Google or YouTube search, and you will find no shortage of theories or explainers about what's really going on in Control. Credit where credit is due, many of them are well written and quite convincing. But this is not an explainer video. Honestly, you could almost call this an anti-explainer. I'm hoping to end this thing with question marks, not periods. It's a mantra the game itself embraces.
Maybe I'll never understand. Maybe I don't need to.
That's our director. Miss Faden is such a great boss, and she could absolutely throw me across the room with her mind if I said otherwise. As the doctor mentioned there, Jesse does indeed become the new director of the FBC. In fact, it happens as soon as you acquire your main weapon. More on that later. As director, Jesse is entitled to much of that redacted information that we, the players, will never be privy to. But even before embracing her new role as the boss, she's careful about how much she tells other people. What is known to the staff is that she is here, in the FBC, but they don't know how she found the place and got in during a lockdown, by Jesse's choice.
And you entered the building when it was already in the lockdown before you became the new director? How?
I'm not ready to tell her about you yet.
But then, what actually got her into the building will never be known. Jesse has an internal guiding force, a being she calls Polaris. What Polaris truly is, or why it's able to bestow Jesse with paranatural power, is something she will never fully understand. That word, paranatural, comes up all the time in Control, so we ought to define it. I see it as a portmanteau of paranormal and supernatural, and its meaning is a fusion of those words too. Paranormal forces are things like telekinesis and human flight, activities that lie outside of any current scientific understanding. Supernatural forces, most often monsters, are beyond any possible science. So by coining the term Paranatural, developer Remedy Entertainment is implying that the bizarre objects, creatures, and events in Control can be understood with the right tools and instruments. The scientists at the FBC hypothesize in this new field of study all the time, especially when it comes to objects of power, special items that grant paranatural abilities. Or, as Emily Pope puts it,
so objects of power are mundane objects that house paranatural energies and have developed a link to the astral plane and can thus be controlled, which is what differentiates them from altered items, which are still housings of paranatural forces, but are more volatile and cannot be bound in the peri-utilitarian sense. Got it?
Did she memorize this?
Let's examine the service weapon, aka the gun you pick up in the previous director's office early in the game. What we know is that whoever wields the weapon becomes director, much like King Arthur pulling Excalibur out of the stone, a legend that is explicitly mentioned in the weapon's case file. What we don't know is the Bureau's full analysis of this weapon. Once again, the document is redacted. Someone knows what's under that black ink, but not us. Then there are things we'll never know about the service weapon. Why does it change form? And what determines whether someone is worthy of becoming the new director? My favorite example of this comes from another object of power, the home safe. Once cleansed, it grants Jesse the shield ability. There's a logical link there. A sturdy protective safe allows Jesse to protect herself in turn. The power it grants is known. Where the safe comes from is unknown. The FBC found it in a redacted place in Ohio, and of course it may have traveled some before that. But here's the kicker. We will never know what's inside the safe that causes it to be indestructible. The document tells us that something is inside, some creature that we know is present thanks to X-rays, and it occasionally bleeds through the seam of the safe door, which is wild. I don't need to know what's in there, but I accept that whatever it is grants me the shield ability. Again, the game echoes this sentiment.
There is one thing we know, and that's how little we truly know.
Wise words, Dad. Indeed, Dr. Darling is a key figure in the events of Control, and another great example of how the game doles out its information. There's a lot we know about the guy, thanks to the many internal company videos that feature him. In terms of the events of the game, his most prominent works are the Hadron Resonance Amplifiers, or HRAs. They protect wearers from the hiss, the evil force that spread throughout the building and caused it to be put on lockdown in the first place. We know that Darling made the devices, and they keep the staff safe. What is unknown is why they were made.
Dr. Darling usually likes to unveil his latest breakthrough in big presentations. With these, he just passed them out. Yeah, his behavior makes me wonder what exactly he knew.
We eventually learn that their designs amplify the resonance coming off of Hadron, an extra-dimensional being that Darling keeps in a very high clearance level lab. Hadron Resonance Amplifier is a literal name for his invention, but we'll never know what happened to Darling after he handed out the HRAs. His ultimate fate, where he disappeared to, is never revealed. On a much lighter note, we'll also never know what possessed him to make this music video. Dad, so cringe. We've talked a lot about the people within the Bureau, but now we need to talk about the Bureau itself. It's a significant player in the story. The FBC building is known as the oldest house, and it's restless. It's constantly shifting and changing shape, alternately preventing Jesse from venturing into certain areas and guiding her deeper in. Let's break this down the usual way. We know that the building shifts, creating new spaces and closing off others as it bends and shapes. According to another humorous memo, sometimes it even cuts off a bathroom or two. We don't know when or how the oldest house will change, but the employees at the FBC learn quickly, and they adapt to new areas as necessary. However, we will never know why the oldest house chooses to shift the way it does, why certain areas are revealed or hidden away. We do get to briefly visit the building's foundation in the main game, and explore it further in the first DLC expansion. Again, there are lots of very plausible theories about what the house really is, but its true identity is a deliberately unanswered question. To put it in even simpler terms, just look at the game's map. As you enter each new sector, many departments are known to you, instantly labeled the moment you step off the elevator. But much like the redacted documents, parts of your map have been blacked out, unknown rooms just waiting to be discovered. But even if you explore every corner of the map, some parts of the house will still never be known to you. We only explore the sectors and departments the game allows us to, but ostensibly there are so many passageways and offices and labs we'll never access, as the house simply won't let us go there.
Yes, I haven't been able to get to my car in the parking lot in like 2 months.
These unsolved mysteries should be accepted by us, the players of Control. Unraveling them and surmising the answers is perfectly fine. You can cross-reference the collectibles all day to uncover information, but embracing the unknown and just going with it? That's the magic here. The best example of this is the Oceanview Motel. It's connected to the oldest house at several points, so you'll be paying it a handful of visits. Your goal there is the same every time. Find the key you need to exit the hotel, but how you accomplish that is different every time. Sometimes you solve a clock puzzle, sometimes you have to rearrange furniture in the rooms, but in every case, you simply have to accept that this is how the hotel works. There's a dream logic to it all. These puzzle solutions wouldn't add up in the real world, but in the Oceanview Motel, they make perfect sense. Acknowledge that you'll never truly know how this works, but move forward anyway. That's the thrust of Control.
Well, the Bureau does work really hard to learn what it can.
That is true. There is so much that Control does answer. I love that fast travel is explained in-game, as Jesse discusses using control points to warp around the house.
Has anyone ever used them to teleport around?
What? No. What, I mean, you mean physically? No, not that I've ever heard of. Why?
Because that's how they work for me.
I love that the astral plane is not just a glorified tutorial, but that you are deliberately taken there by each new object of power you acquire. And yet, I have to take Dr. Darling's words to heart.
This changes everything. It's beyond our understanding. We have brought so many questions with us through that hole in the wall.
Some things really are beyond what we're meant to understand. Once you accept that, you can sit back and enjoy Control like an Edvard Munch masterpiece, instead of stripping away every layer of paint trying to learn what it all means. We go in expecting the developers to explain everything, and I imagine Remedy does have internal studio documents that aren't redacted like the ones in-game. But why don't we let what the team created just be? I started Control with so many questions, but the deeper I went, the more I understood what was known, unknown, and will never be known, the less I cared about answering them. Control is a game full of forbidden knowledge, and it can stay that way. As director Faden ponders,
I don't think we're ever gonna understand all of this, and I'm okay with that.
Me too, Jesse. Me too.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what Framework is doing, definitely hit that subscribe button in the middle. It would help me out an awful lot if you did. And if you want to see what we've already cooked up, hit that link on the far left. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.